Welcome back, yogis. Before we get into our flow, let's start with some breathing in child's pose. So feel free to bring the knees wide, toes together, hands out in front, feeling the chest expand and collapse in between your knees. Maybe as you breathe, noticing that the hips come to rest more closely on your heels. And start to lengthen the breath. Pretend like there's a tennis ball rolling up and down your spine. And as you inhale, it starts from the tailbone and rolls up to the base of your skull. And then as you exhale, it rolls back down. And use that idea of the tennis ball to expand from the lower part of the body all the way up to the upper body and the lungs, making sure that you're really using the full range of your breath. If you haven't already, maybe add a little bit of heat to your breath, practicing that Ujjayi style of breathing. And then let's go ahead and walk the hands to one side so that as you breathe, you'll feel that in your side body stretching and expanding the ribs, reaching through the fingertips, maybe even crossing one hand over the other to intensify the stretch if that feels good. Take another breath here. And then go ahead and start to walk the hands back to center. And then over to the other side. Now feeling that breath pass through your opposite side, your opposite part of the rib cage. Maybe feeling the breath all the way down into your hips. Again, making it more intense if you'd like by walking one hand over the other, creating more of an arc with the body. And then again, walk your hands back to center. One more breath. Reach through the tailbone, reach through the fingertips. Lengthen the spine. And then when you're ready, we're going to come up into a tabletop position. And we'll take a few cat-cow stretches here, or if there's another movement that you like, if you'd like to maybe move your spine in a circular motion or side to side, whatever feels good to help you warm up. Find a little bit of lubrication in the spine before you get into your more serious flow. Make sure that you're moving all the way from your tailbone through the neck, really engaging all parts of your spine, from lumbar to cervical spine. We'll take a few more breaths here. You can either stick with your cat-cows or make this kind of jump roping motion like I am. And then on your next breath, come back to a neutral spine and push back to child's pose one more time. Maybe notice that the hips can sink a little bit deeper towards the heels. Maybe you can walk the fingertips a little farther forward. And then if you'd like to create more of a heart opener, we're going to walk our fingertips out, coming into puppy dog pose. You can grab blocks like I have to make it a little bit more intense. And as you breathe, you're going to release maybe the forehead, or if you have a little bit more range of motion, the chin or even the chest to the ground. Hips are still right on top of the knees. Breathing, opening up your heart center, and really intensely stretching your shoulders. Go ahead and come back to table, maybe walking your blocks over to one side, and then take one arm and thread it underneath the opposite arm. Thread the needle, maybe bringing your gaze to the sky. And there's a lot of options here. So you can bring your hands to prayer for a little bit more intensity, wrap one hand behind your back, reach for the sky, or you can keep both hands on the ground so that you have plenty of support and you don't feel like you're putting too much pressure on your neck or your head. Release, find puppy, and then switch to the other side. Opposite arm goes underneath, maybe looking up towards the sky or taking one of the variations that I mentioned before. Just working to warm up and open up the shoulders before we get into our flow. Wherever you are, gently release, come back to puppy dog pose. Maybe notice you have a little bit more range of motion to drop the chest towards the ground, and then gently walk the fingertips in and find child's pose one more time. Roll yourself up and come into your first back bend, which can be upward facing dog like me or cobra, and then exhale, curl all the way back to child's pose. So a really exaggerated range of motion as you roll forward and find that back bend, and then exhale, curve the spine and gently tap the hips to the heels. Again, roll forward, open up the heart, and then exhale, engage the core, create that curve in the spine as you push back to child's pose. Again, roll forward, and on an exhale, curve yourself back. Really articulating the curve and the movement in the spine. Go ahead and hang out in child's pose here for a moment or two, neutralizing the spine again. And then on your next breath, instead of curving forward, we're going to drag the chest through, coming into up dog, and then exhale, curve back, child's pose. Arch the body, arch the back as you drag the chest through, up dog, and then curve the spine, engage the abs, tap the hips to child's pose. Curve, open up the heart, and then push back, squeeze the core, open up the hips. Again, engaging the upper body, starting to build that strength. This is a really great alternative to chaturanga if you don't quite have the strength for chaturanga yet. And then settle into child's pose. Take a breath. It's a exaggerated opening of the heart, but it's a really great way to still build strength. Go ahead and find table again, and we'll take a couple more cat-cows just to come back to a centered sensation. And then on your next breath, we'll go ahead and find a neutral spine. Neutral is a nice flat back, especially with the lower abs sucking in. And then step to plank, keeping that neutral spine, and slowly lower yourself all the way to the ground. Resting on the ground, rolling up for cobra, opening up the heart, really engaging the back, strengthening the back to lift. Very little weight in the hands themselves. You can see I can actually pick my hands up off the ground. So there's almost no weight in the hands. And then release the forehead back down to the ground, push up to plank, and then all the way back to down dog. Since this is our first down dog, feel free to take a few steps, walking out each heel, inhaling, dropping one heel to the ground, exhaling the other, and just shifting back and forth with the breath. When you're ready, drop both heels evenly towards the ground. Reach the tailbone towards the sky, lengthen through the upper body. And then on your next exhale, gently step forward. Inhale, half lift. And then release your head and neck, forward fold. Inhale, rise all the way up. Exhale, palms come to your heart center. Inhale, grow tall. Exhale, keep that length as you create the side stretch that we did at the beginning, but in a standing position. Stretching to the other side, back to center, and then a back bend, pushing the hips forward, dropping the hands behind, and then release and dive forward, forward fold. Go ahead and take the hands and wrap them around the ankles and the calves. Try to make the elbows touch and then extend the legs. So this is a really intense forward fold. You're really bound tightly around the legs. Release and inhale to a flat back, and then release to the ground, forward fold, and rise up on the inhale. Exhale, hands to your heart, and then make sure you have enough room. Inhale. Exhale, twist and try to pick up one leg. So you're finding your balance, twisting towards that leg. Release to center, tall mountain, and then exhale, twisting to the other side. Go ahead and release, back to tall mountain. Find a back bend if that feels good, or just reach tall, straight for the sky, and then exhale, fold forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, release. And find that deep forward fold again. Your nose should be right about your kneecaps. Your gaze and your forehead should be right about the mid-shin, or maybe even deeper if you have more flexibility. Go ahead and release and find a twist again, but this time in a forward fold position. Release to center. Twist to the opposite side. Maybe bending one knee if you need to. If you have a little bit of tighter hamstrings, that might be a good option for you. And then back to center. This time, soften the knees and rise up to chair pose, sinking the hips down and back, and really engaging the upper back as you lift through the fingertips. So the same sensations that you felt in Cobra, engaging your back, same idea here. Really engage the back and let the hands float higher because the back is working. Inhale to the sky, and then exhale back to your heart center. Inhale. Exhale to one side, opening up that side body, keeping the abs engaged to protect your spine, and then center. Opposite side, and then back to center. Reach behind for a little bit of a back bend if that feels good for you, totally optional, and then fold forward. Wrap the hands around the calves or the ankles and find that deep forward fold. Take another breath here. Feel the openness in the backs of the legs and maybe the spine. And then half lift and release to a relaxed forward fold. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Adding on to our standing twisting series, inhale towards the sky. Exhale, pick up one foot and squeeze the core to twist the upper body towards that knee. Back towards center, and then to the other side, really using the strength of your core to create the twist, since you don't have anything that you can use for leverage. Find a back bend again if that feels good for you. And then tall mountain, exhale, swan dive forward. Inhale, flatten the back, reach out through the crown of the head, try not to put a kink in the neck, and then find that deep forward fold, wrapping around the legs, trying to make the elbows connect. It's okay if the elbows don't actually touch. Mine don't. But make that your goal or your focus in this intense forward fold. Gently release. Hands come in front of the toes. Flatten the back and find a twist. Again, softening one knee if that works for you. We're going to add a little bind here. It's a little challenging and awkward even for me, so maybe grab your strap. Release the bind, come back to forward fold, and then flatten the back. And again, maybe try that bind. So you're softening the knee and trying to reach around the knee and around the back. It's okay if you cannot reach. It's highly unlikely that you'll reach with straight legs. Release back to forward fold. And then soften your knees on your next breath and rise up on an inhale to chair pose. Again, really engaging the back to lift. Hands come to your heart center and come into twisted chair. So one elbow hooks over the opposite knee, making sure the knee that you're not connecting with doesn't jut forward. We have a tendency to kind of twist our hips and our knees with this twist. Go ahead and find your prayer twist on the other side, which defeats the purpose. We want to keep our hips square, our knees square, and just twist with the upper body. And this time with the knee or the elbow connected with the knee, you do have a little bit of leverage to intensify the twist. Come back to center and inhale towards the sky. Exhale, hands to your heart. Inhale, grow tall. Exhale, half moon, reach to one side, find that big side twist, center, and then to the other side, keeping the abs in super tight, shoulders open so that you can see past the top shoulder. Center, and then finding a small back bend if that feels good. Maybe you're warmed up enough that you can start to go much deeper. Listen to your body. Release and fold forward and find that intense forward fold again. Wrapping the hands around the ankles, trying to press the forearms and the elbows together behind the legs, squeezing and hugging your legs, drawing your chest towards your knees, and then release, half lift on the inhale, exhale, fold. Inhale, rise all the way up. Again, back bend if you want, or tall mountain, hands back to your heart on the exhale. Inhale, tall mountain. Exhale, balanced twist. Maybe try to add a little intensity by extending the foot. And if you can grab a hold of your big toe, you can go ahead and create that twist wrapped around your big toe or the outside of the foot. As you can see, it's very difficult to keep your balance, and that's fine. Release back to center, and then inhale up and exhale, twist to the other side. Maybe you keep the knee bent, or maybe you extend the leg and try to lengthen the upper body and create a nice tall spine while grabbing a hold of the floating foot. Gently release and come back to mountain. Inhale, back bend, going as far as feels good for you, listening to your body, and then folding forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, deep forward fold. Breathe and feel the space in your back opening up because your heart is pressed against your thighs, so your breath has to go somewhere. Release the hands in front of the toes and inhale one hand towards the sky, creating that standing folded twist, and maybe reach for that imaginary bind. Take another breath here and release the bind. Hands come back to the ground, forward fold. Inhale, opposite side, finding the twist first. Reaching behind the back and wrapping around that softened knee. Taking a breath, looking towards the sky, and then release and fold forward. Soften the knees again, hips sink down and back, and inhale towards the sky, chair pose. On your next breath, palms come together. Find that twisted chair again, using just a little bit of leverage to create a deeper twist. Now you can stay here, or you can open up the arms, airplane arms. Or if you would like, you can come into one of my favorite, and what I think is one of the most accessible arm balances, a side crow. Feel free to pause and play with that if you need to, or release and come back to your twisted chair. Take one more breath, and inhale, center, regular chair. Exhale, prayer arms, hook the elbow across the other knee, finding the twist, maybe deepening the twist by opening up the arms. And you can stay in either of those options, or you can try the arm balance on this side. Make sure you have enough room. Don't lean forward and then clock yourself with a shelf like I have. Again, feel free to pause, play with it, maybe keep a big toe on the ground, maybe both feet come off, maybe you hold it for many, many breaths, or come back to your twisted chair and then gently release the elbows. Both hands towards the sky. Inhale. Exhale, sink a little deeper, and then inhale towards tall mountain or a back bend if that feels good for you today. Hands back to your heart center. Inhale, grow tall. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, half lift. And then this time we will plant the hands and gently step back to plank. Lower down with control, and then come to rest on the ground, hands right underneath the elbows. Rise up, cobra, squeezing the elbows towards your sides, squeezing the shoulder blades together, and then gently release. Bring the hands a little bit wider and roll yourself up to one side, maybe finding a little bit of a neck stretch. And then roll down and roll up to the other side. I like this because it gives you a little bit more range of motion in the shoulders to open up the heart. Rise up to up dog this time. Legs engaged, knees off the ground, and then exhale, push back to down dog, making sure the upper body is nice and long. So if you need to soften the knees in order to lengthen through the tailbone and lengthen through the lower back, that is perfectly fine. Otherwise, take a few more breaths here. And then roll the body forward into plank and slowly lower down once again. Nice and slow, lots of control, building strength by controlling your weight on the way down to the ground. This time, reach the arms out in front of you and lift up, squeezing the elbows behind like cactus arms. Reach out in front and then squeeze the elbows together, really engaging the upper back, creating strength in the upper back to support you in your back bends. Reach out in front again and squeeze one more time. And reach out in front. I lied. One more time. And back out in front. Hands come underneath the elbows. Actually, walk the hands a little bit wider and let's roll all the way through again. That kind of exaggerated up dog with wide arms. Rolling side to side. So of course you need strength for back bends, but you also need a lot of openness, so it's important to stretch through the heart. Let's release back down, and we'll do that one more time. Squeeze the elbows behind you, cactus arms, and then reach out in front. Squeeze, and if you want to really challenge yourself, don't drop back down, come to Superman. Cactus arms, lift the chest away from the ground, and then back out in front, reach and stretch, squeeze and contract, release, and again, squeeze, shoulder blades come together and down your back, and then release, and then hands come underneath the elbows and push up into child's pose. Take a few breaths. I know for some people those are really, really challenging. This could be an indication that your posture could use a little bit more improvement or focus. So you know yourself best. Check in with your body the next time you're seated. Go ahead and join me in down dog again. And now we're going to level up our flow. So inhale, one foot towards the sky for split down dog. And then exhale, step that foot in between the hands and rise up crescent pose, making sure that you're sinking deep into the front leg and you're active in the back foot and you're not overarching the lower back in order to sink deep. Release the opposite hand to the inside of that front foot and find an easy twist, making sure that you're stacking the shoulders, but you're not dumping your weight into that bottom hand. Keep the shoulders open and rise up into an unsupported twist. Go nice and slow. Find your balance, and it's okay if you wobble. And then come forward again, this time hooking the bottom arm around that standing front leg. You can stay there if that's intense enough for you, or find a bind, reaching through the legs and around the back, and maybe grabbing a hold of a finger or two. Also, optional to use your strap. Release, come back to a prayer twist, and take a moment, and then gently release your twist, stretch up towards the sky. Hands come back down to the ground, inhale plank, and take a traditional vinyasa, or if you'd like, push back to child's pose like I am. And we'll go back to that heart-opening variation of chaturanga that we did at the beginning of class, where you drag your chest through and then push up to up dog. Exhale, down dog. Inhale, opposite side. Lift the heel towards the sky, square hips. Reach, find a long line of energy from fingertips through heel, and then exhale, bring the foot through. Rise up, crescent pose. Square your hips. Engage the back foot. Sink deep into the front leg so that knee is as close to 90 as possible. And then gently bring one hand towards the inside of the foot for your easy twist. Try to keep the hips square and the shoulders open. So you're twisting through the spine rather than sacrificing the twist by twisting with the hips. Keep the arms open as you rise up for that unsupported twist. No wobbles this time. Much more stable. And then shift forward again, but bringing that bottom hand this time to the outside part of the knee. If this is just not in your practice, you can find a prayer twist instead. Or if you'd like to add on like I am, reach behind the back and through the legs for your bound version. If you're in the bind, continue to open the shoulders, look towards the sky. And then wherever you are, gently release, finding the more gentle prayer twist, taking a breath, and then releasing the elbow and extending the hands towards the sky. Hands come to the ground, inhale to plank, and lower down with control again. But this time, instead of doing cobra and focusing on strengthening the upper back, which is good for posture, go ahead and bring the hands behind the back, interlock the fingers, and start to draw the knuckles down the back of the legs, which will lift the upper body, and then lift the legs. So you're really now starting to strengthen the lower and middle part of your back while, of course, getting that same lovely heart opener that you get from Cobra. Gently release. Take a breath here. Rest your head on your hands. We're going to do it one more time. So interlock again, opposite thumb on top, and rise up, reaching the hands for the heels first, and then picking up the feet. And this is really important for just everyday life. Anytime you lift anything, you want to make sure that you have a nice, strong spine so you don't throw out your back. Go ahead and release. Take a breath. And then we're going to take that a little bit deeper. So this time, when you reach behind, go ahead and grab a hold of either the feet or the ankles. And you're actually going to keep your back muscles relatively neutral so they're not too engaged. And instead, push the feet into the hands to create the back bend that is known as bow pose. And so it's really the legs that are doing the work here to create the opening in the heart and to create the deepness in your back bend, not necessarily strengthening with the back itself to create the back bend. Go ahead and release. Hands come under the elbows. Inhale up, up dog, or if you want to stick with Cobra, that's fine. And push back to child's pose. Take a breath here. And then on your next exhale, go ahead and curve forward, coming into up dog on the inhale, and then push back to down dog on the exhale. Inhale, find split down dog. Once again, hips stay square, foot is flexed, so you're reaching through the heel. And then notice how it changes when you roll that top hip open. Square the hips again, and step the foot through. So just notice the difference between the arrangement of your hips in down dog. Rise up to crescent pose. Big inhale, sink into that front leg. And then on your next breath, we'll go ahead and find your easy twist, starting with the easy twist so the hand is on the inside of the foot. Engage the shoulder blade of that top arm to roll the hand to the sky. And then go ahead and sink the hips towards the ground. So your weight is on the outside edge of both feet. And you're in a really deep hip opener. A little bit of a side stretch as well. And then come back to your easy twist. Release both hands to the ground on the inside of that front foot. And maybe walk your front foot out to the outside edge of the mat. And then drop the back knee to the ground. Now for lizard pose, listen to your body. If you have really tight hips, maybe you want to stay up on the hands. But if you have a lot of range of motion, you can come down onto the forearms like I am. Wherever you're at, go ahead and roll the front leg towards the outside edge and maybe roll open towards the sky, adding a twist. And then if you'd like to take it a step further, pick up that back foot, grab a hold of the foot, and play with the back foot. You can pull the foot in towards the hips for more of a quad stretch, or you can push the foot more into the hand for more of a back bend heart opener. Come back to center, back to your lizard pose, and slowly make your way up. On your next inhale, we're going to come into side plank. So do the best that you can with that transition, engaging the core, picking up the front leg, and either stacking it or, like I'm doing, finding tree pose. Take that top leg behind you and open up for wild thing. Totally optional. If you want to stick with the strength of side plank, that is fine. Go ahead and bring that top foot back to the front of your mat. And this time we're going to walk the foot to the opposite edge of the mat and then gently lay the shin down to come into pigeon pose. So square the hips here. Make sure that neither hip is really resting on the ground. If one is resting on the ground, then both should be resting on the ground. Now you can go ahead and ease yourself forward out over that front leg, really getting into the glute and the hip of that front leg. Staying on the hands, the forearms, or resting the head to the ground. If this is too much for your knee, you have a couple options. You can walk the front ankle closer to your hips, or you can roll over onto your back and cradle the bent knee towards your chest. Go ahead and slowly make your way back up to upright. And then we're going to add that same quad stretch. Now this is pretty intense for some people, so you can skip it, or you can make it more intense by flipping your grip and starting to push your heel towards your hips. It's a really, really great quad stretch. Go ahead and release, step back to plank, and soften the knees to the ground, hips, tap the heels. Take a breath in child's pose, and then drag the heart through, inhaling up dog, exhale down dog. So opposite side, inhale, the foot is going to rise up, hips square, foot flex, toe pointed towards the ground. Maybe play with it by rolling the hips open, noticing how that feels, how that changes the sensations of split down dog. Then come back to square, and on your exhale, step the foot all the way through. Rise up, crescent pose. Take a breath or two. You know what's coming, so take a moment to mentally prepare and physically prepare by sinking deep into the front leg. Now we'll start with that easy twist, hand on the inside of the foot, hips square, engaging the shoulder blade of the top arm, and then rock onto the outside edges of the feet and drop the hip towards the ground for that deep hip stretch and side stretch. Rise back up and bring your floating hand to the inside of the foot, drop the back knee to the ground, and prepare for lizard pose. So again, it's totally optional to come onto the forearms. You can absolutely stay on the hands. Wherever you are though, I want you to think about trying to reach through the crown of the head rather than curving the spine and dropping the forearms to the ground that way. Try to keep the spine relatively flat. And then let's go ahead and shift our weight so that we can look towards that front knee. Maybe drop the knee wide, coming to rest on the outside edge of the foot. You could focus on the twist or add the quad stretch. And again, the quad stretch doesn't have to be a quad stretch. It could also be a back bend. So if you prefer to focus on the back bend, push the foot into the hand instead. Wherever you are, gently release, come back to lizard, and make your way up to upright and prepare to transition to side plank. Again, using your strength to gently pick up that front leg and either stack it on the bottom leg or find tree, and then gently step it behind you, lift the hips towards the sky, floating hand reaches above your head for wild thing. One more breath, and gently come back to your high lunge. Go ahead and walk that foot to the opposite edge of the mat now and sink the hips towards the ground for pigeon pose. Now, a lot of people just almost automatically fold forward for pigeon, which is fine if you want to focus on opening up the glute and the hip of that front leg. But you can always choose to stay more upright. And if you choose to stay more upright, you'll start to build the strength in your back for back bends, and you'll also start to open up the hip flexor of that back leg, which will also be helpful for back bends, things like king pigeon if you ever want to work towards that. So just keep that in mind as an option. You can stay folded forward like we were, or rise up and pick up that back foot, finding a quad stretch, flipping your grip if you'd like an extra challenge, and pushing the heel towards the hip. This is also a really great stretch in your shoulder and your chest on that side. One more breath. And gently release, tuck the toes, rise up, and step to plank. Go ahead and take a traditional vinyasa, flowing through chaturanga, inhaling up dog, and then exhale, down dog. Long breath here, reaching through the tailbone, making sure that you don't overextend the shoulders, and then try a twisted down dog, reaching one hand for the opposite ankle, maybe bringing your gaze past that standing arm, and then twist to the other side. Making sure that the spine is nice and straight so that as you twist, there's no unnecessary pressure on the discs in your back. Go ahead and come back to down dog. And then we're going to find a seated position. So go ahead and drop the knees to the ground, cross the ankles, and roll on back. Once seated, go ahead and stack one shin on top of the other. And inhale the hands towards the sky. Exhale, hinge forward and fold out over those shins. And then we're going to go into the same side stretches that we did at the beginning of class when we were in child's pose. But now you're going to feel it a little bit more in your hips, not just your sides. So on your next breath, walk your hands over to one side. Breathing. The upper body should feel parallel with the ground. So that way you're really focusing on extending the side and not twisting. And then gently walk your hands to the other side. And always make a really terrible joke about hopefully you don't have stinky feet, because depending on which side you're on, your toes might be right there. Maybe you just got a pedicure and you have really pretty toes. Come back to center. Walk yourself back up to upright. Inhale, grow tall. And exhale, gentle twist towards that top knee. Take an inhale to lengthen a little bit more. Exhale, twist and look farther behind you. Using your inhales to find length in the spine and your exhales to find more depth in your twist. Inhale back to center, and then this time, hands come to prayer, twist to the opposite side, so hooking your elbow around your foot and create that same twist. This is a really great way to start towards more advanced poses like grasshopper pose. If you have a difficult time getting your elbow into your foot, this is a great place to start. Go ahead and release. And keeping that top foot hooked on the knee, go ahead and prop the knee up and push your chest towards the shin. So this is very, very similar to a reclined pigeon, like what I mentioned earlier in class, but it can actually be much more intense. Go ahead and hook your forearms around the calf and then see if you can lie down. So for me, this is very difficult. I can almost not lie all the way down without my bottom extended leg coming up off the ground. You might have a little bit more range of motion, but this is a really great way to start to open up the body for things like pigeon or compass. Go ahead and release and extend that leg so that you're focusing now on a hamstring stretch. And then release to the ground. Take a breath, and on your exhale, curl up using your core strength. And then we're going to do it on the other side. So the opposite shin stacks on top. Take an inhale, grow tall. Keep that spine nice and long as you hinge forward, stacking your chest on your shins. If it's really difficult for you to connect the shins one on top of the other, this is actually a good way to use your own body weight as leverage to start to press the shins together. But listen to your body. If you need to back off because it's a little too much for your tight hips, that's perfectly fine. Go ahead and walk your hands over to one side, finding that side stretch. Take another breath. Feel the space between the ribs open, and then gently walk over to the other side. So your chest and shoulders again are parallel with the ground, and that will ensure that you're stretching all the way from your ribs down towards the hip. Take another breath and come back to center. Walk your hands in and come back up to upright. Inhale, hands reach up towards the sky, and then exhale, twist towards the top knee. Backhand is there for support. If you don't need the support, you can challenge yourself by bringing that backhand and wrapping it behind the back and hooking into your hip crease. Or you can keep it there and focus on finding length as you twist. Inhale back up towards the sky, and then palms come together. Hook the elbow into the center of the foot, the sole of the foot, and start to roll yourself open in a twist. So this is not only an intense twist, but also intense on the hip. You have to have quite a lot of range of motion. Release back to the sky, and then the hands come behind you. Keep the top foot stacked, ankle over the knee, and prop up the bottom knee, pressing the shin towards your chest. Take a few breaths here to ease into that hip opener, and then take the arms and, like a lift, hook the arms like a forklift underneath the calf and shin and start to roll yourself down. So not only are you pulling the calf and shin close to your chest, finding that intense hip opener that you would find in pigeon, but that bottom leg is being engaged and you're opening up the hip flexor or the front of the hip. Really try to reach through that bottom leg as much as you can, which I know can be very challenging with your shins so close to your chest. One more breath. And then when you're ready, release and extend that floating leg or bent leg and give yourself a little bit of a hamstring opener. Just one breath there. And then release to the ground, and exhale, use your core to rise up. We're going to do a little bit of core work here before we close out. So find boat pose, and then we're going to do a twisted boat pose. You can keep the leg stationary, or you can drop the opposite leg for more of a challenge. Arms are staying wide in a T as you twist and tap opposite fingertips to ankle. Moving with your breath, nice and slow. This is not a jarring, quick motion. It's very controlled. And then go ahead and release. And slowly roll down, one vertebrae at a time. As slow as possible. Walk your heels a little bit closer towards your hips. And then curve the spine up off the ground, coming into bridge pose. You can rest the hands on either side of the body for support, or you can interlock the fingers underneath the body and open up the front of the body a little bit more. Get more of a heart opener as well as a bit of a back bend. And you're also getting an inversion because the hips are above the heart. Release the hands, and on an exhale, curve the spine down one vertebrae at a time, engaging the abs. Take a breath, and then you can either take that version of bridge again, or you can take a supported bridge with your block. If you're in the supported bridge and you want to make it a little bit more intense, you can extend the legs, which will create more of an openness in the front of the hips, maybe in your lower abdomen. Take another breath. Wherever you are at, feel the openness all the way from your kneecaps to the tops of your shoulders. And then wherever you're at, gently release. Walk the feet in, release the block. And now you can take one of those other two options, or you can come into full wheel, bringing the hands over the head and pushing up, straight arms, long legs, trying to arc the hips as much as you can towards the sky. And then again, wherever you are at, release and gently roll the spine down one vertebrae at a time. Go ahead and walk the feet wide, hands come to a T, and gently rock the knees to one side. So one knee is right next to the other ankle. On your next exhale, twist to the opposite side. Feet are wide. So you have kind of that staggered twist, which for me feels really good in my lower back. And then come back to center and grab a hold of the soles of the feet for happy baby. Bringing the knees to the outsides of your rib cage and the soles of the feet parallel with the sky. You can rock side to side if that feels good, like a nice little massage on the spine. Or you can stay steady, stay centered, and focus on connecting the entire spine with the ground. The more you can connect your tailbone with the ground, the more you'll feel the stretch in your hips. Go ahead and come back to center and bring the soles of the feet together. Wrap the hands around the soles of the feet and let the feet hang heavy in the hands. So what this will do is draw your shoulders away from your ears. Maybe you'll feel a really great stretch in your neck. Maybe you feel quite a bit of openness in your inner hips. And then keep the soles of the feet together, but release the hands and bring the soles of the feet to the ground for goddess pose, reclining goddess pose. So the knees are gently open. Soles of the feet together. Stay there for a breath or two at the most. And then gently open up and lengthen the legs coming into Shavasana. So for me, goddess pose feels amazing, but we do want to close out in the traditional Shavasana so that your body is completely relaxed and doesn't have any blocks. There's no compression or pulling of the muscles and the organs. It's just very neutral. And that way your body can fully recover. The blood can flow through your body unimpeded. And you can find the benefits, the rest and relaxation after you put in all of your hard work. So we will stay here for about another couple of minutes. You are more than welcome to stay in Shavasana for as long as you'd like, as long as you have time for. Otherwise, just stay for a few more breaths. Rest, recover, and enjoy. If you are ready to slowly reawaken the body, start to wiggle the fingers, wiggle the toes. Just become aware of the body's ability to move again. Maybe windshield wiper the hands and the knees in opposite directions. And then come up to a seated position. Maybe that is a rock back and forth to rise up, or maybe you roll over to your favorite side and gently push yourself up. Wherever you are, find a comfortable seated position. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your practice with me today. I hope you enjoyed. Namaste.